Oh, hello, we're live. Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to FriendQuest as part of Friend Jam 2.0. I'm Gabriel. I'm going to be running a comedic game of misadventure among friends. We're going to make up this game as we go along. We're going to introduce the characters in a second, but just in case anyone watching isn't super familiar, tabletop role-playing game, maybe like Dungeons and Dragons that you've heard of, is a made-up improvised story as we go along. We kind of have some bare bone rules that we're going to use for how things work, but most of it is just going to be saying what we want to do, sometimes rolling some dice online to find out how that goes. We're using a game called Trophy Gold, which is normally about desperate treasure hunters trying to be heroes in dark and dangerous places. But for this game, we've all talked about kind of lightening the tone a little bit. So they still might encounter some weird and dangerous things, or kind of make it a bit more comedic, hopefully. Everyone playing is amazing, improvising, and from past games, we've had songs come into play, so I'm really hoping that happens. Logan, you're muted. Unless you meant to be.
No, I just meant to. I was like, oh, I forgot about that. All right. Let me just go.
Yeah, I've never streamed a live game before, so I'm nervous about that, but I'm going to let the players do all the good stuff, and we'll see what happens. Just a couple things also about role-playing games. We're using safety tools, which are we're using lines and veils. So off-screen, we've talked about sort of content that we're not going to have appear in the game, kind of like a movie rating. And we've talked about things that are okay if they show up, but we're not going to focus on them. So we kind of have our tone in mind. It's just a commonplace thing in role-playing games that I think is important to mention. Also, we're using the X card. So if anything comes up that is just uncomfortable territory or just you don't want to go there, the players will indicate that, and we'll change the fiction and move on, because it's a fantasy game and we're having fun and we can do whatever we want. So with that being said, I want to introduce the characters. So we'll go from, let's see, Logan, Aki, then Sky. Just introduce yourself, then describe your character.
Sure. Hi, my name's Logan McNeve. I'm over here in Indianapolis, Indiana, and happy to be here. And my character is Jean-Jacques. He is at one point in time, for some reason or another, which I guess we'll have to find out, I was once a werebear, so I just kind of turned into bears kind of randomly and probably wreaked a heck of a lot of havoc. Again, for some reason or other, I was cured of my werebearness and am no longer able to do that. So I'm now a lowly farmhand. And unfortunately, I got into a lot of very bad misadventures when I was a bear, and I may have killed some people, stole some things. And so there are a lot of big guards, bad guards, who are basically ready to hang me. So they offered that if I can just pay them a substantial amount of money, which I do not have, then perhaps this will save me from the noose.
Excellent. One thing we didn't really talk about, but in this game, every character sort of has a drive. It sounds like you described it, but basically a reason why they're going on dangerous adventures. Because if they don't, like you kind of described, they're in a lot of trouble. So otherwise, you might just retire and run a cafe or something. So, cool. Aki.
Yes, I am Obeha, an expelled apprentice of the Storm Seeker's Arcanum, where I was trying to become a great and powerful wizard, but I could not wait for the knowledge to be given to me, and so I wreaked a lot of havoc, and I was expelled for my avarice for power. But I also may or may not have stolen a precious scroll or artifact from the reliquary of the Arcanum, and I may or may not have spent the last year or so traveling and being an imposter and stealing other scrolls to add to my wealth. And my drive is that I wish to publish my discoveries and attain great fame across the land. So, yes, Obeha, that's me.
Awesome. And then Sky.
Yes, it's a pleasure to be here at this Friend Jam. Thanks for having me, Gabriel. I am playing a character named Rose. You can picture her sort of in the likeness of Keira Knightley in the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. She's tall and graceful and has flowing curly brown hair and you know, starry eyes. She comes from a very wealthy family. Her father is a nobleman, and she always was, you know, she was one of those noble princess type ladies who was always underfoot and trying to sneak around and such, and always fancied adventurers who she saw coming in and out of her family's hometown. So she has now escaped her life that she felt kind of imprisoned by, that might have been a life of great fortune and lavish riches, and instead she is trying to be an adventurer herself. She has snuck out of the lands where her family lives, with a few belongings belonging to her family, including a very fancy bottle of wine, which I'm sure will come out at some point in time here. And her goal is to get to this seaside town where she plans to commandeer her father's private vessel, and with some comrades that perhaps these two right here, or perhaps some we've yet to meet, she hopes to kind of take that boat to the seas and become something of a privateer and a smuggler. And she kind of hopes to rob from the rich and give to the poor, because she is tired of watching the way that wealth has the capacity to corrupt, as it did to her father and her kingdom. So that's a little bit about Rose.
Amazing. Very very big dreams for a 2-hour session. I can't wait to see how far you all get. But I don't know any of this planned out at all, so it'll be amazing. One more little bookkeeping thing I remembered before we jump into the adventure is, I'm going to link it here. If I can make it go live. 1 second. There we go.
Cool.
Yeah. So as part of Friend Jam, you know, everyone else is a performer. I'm not really considering this a performance as much as a bunch of friends having a great time. But if you enjoy what you see, you want to add a tip to my Venmo, I'm going to be giving all the proceeds to offtheirplate.org, which I learned about recently through a stream Aki was a part of. Seems really, really great and timely.
Yeah.
A group that is helping like frontline healthcare workers and restaurant workers both get meals, have work, and, you know, do those super crucial jobs right now. So I'll put that banner up from time to time, but just keep that in mind. Anything else before we jump in? Anything else anybody wants to mention?
I just want to give a shout out to Candace Gallmeyer, who left us a live comment in one of our streams.
What?
And I just
Oh,
want to
yeah.
say thank you for calling us cuties. We appreciate that.
Oh, we
Yes.
like it.
Awesome. Yeah, I suppose new doing this, but you can comment on Facebook and YouTube and all that. So that's really fun.
That's sweet.
All right. So the first shot opens on these three travelers on a dusty road. At midday, sun's beating down on you. You're maybe on horseback, maybe on foot. Maybe one of you's dragging a cart of things you're taking somewhere. You're all headed to a place known as the Salt Market. This road you're on is not too far from the coast, and it's one of these really weird. It's like a vast flea market where all sorts of characters show up to. Many of them maybe out of sight of more, outside of the law or more legitimate markets. It's a known destination for smugglers, vagrants, just people trying to keep out of sight. It's all tucked into this cliff face, kind of over the edge of the cliff, far away from any major cities. And we'll discover kind of maybe your different reasons from going there. But if you could all just describe your character's appearances as you're walking along and your kind of mindset as you're starting out.
So I think my character is absolutely pulling a really kind of rugged, rustic cart. Again, I'm a farmhand, but not as like, hardened and beaten a farmhand like I've been doing it all my life, only somewhat recently. So I'm kind of beaten, bruised, sunburned. I've got kind of a really kind of cruddy, dirty mustache and goatee, long kind of oily hair. But I'm kind of gangly with some musculature, and I'm kind of pulling this along, kind of slapping flies out of my face that are kind of surrounding this cart of somewhat questionable vegetables that I'm hoping to go sell, or maybe there's something under those vegetables that I'm trying to hide that I'm trying to sell. And I don't know necessarily yet whether I'm traveling with or if I'm traveling next to Obeha and Rose at this point. But I'm just kind of trying to strike up little conversations here and there, and just hey, you want to buy some beets? And
yeah, Obeha and Rose, do you know this guy, or is he already with you? I think it's kind of funny.
I don't think so. I don't think we know this gentleman. I think we've met at a crossroads and have been traveling together to the salt market. But
I feel like I might have seen him on my father's lands before, though. He looks very much like someone who might have worked in the fields.
As a scholar, I don't. There's nothing really I find quite interesting about this farmer fellow, but I think Rose, for some reason, doesn't want to just leave him in our dust. So I'm enduring his company on this walk.
I kind of turn to you, and I'm sure you're far more well dressed than I am, and I just turn to you and I say, "Care for some beets, sir?"
No, thank you, though.
I understand. I wasn't actually trying to sell you beets, I promise. But I see you have an empty finger for rings, perhaps. Perhaps.
Do you have any rings of any particular note?
I kind of start digging through some of the vegetables that are in there, and I'm getting kind of some dye, from the hot heat and everything like that that's there. And you hear a couple jingles, and I have some very kind of poor jewelry, poorly made, everything like that. I'm let it go for just a small price.
Do you have anything old, very old?
Perhaps at the bottom of the cart. And I just kind of start kind of doing it, and I'm basically just kind of desperate and trying to show you anything huh?
Let me think about it, I suppose.
Actually,
very well. I'll keep looking.
Yes.
I think as he is pulling aside the cart, just because we're going to inject something into the story here, I think there's definitely something old that piques your interest. So I guess I would like for Jean, you can say what it is, and then Obeha, say why it piques your interest. Okay. There's something that he doesn't know about it, maybe. Oh, you're muted, Logan.
Oh, I'm going to say, as part of actually my equipment that's on my sheet, I have this, which is a vial of ink. And there's something special about this vial of ink, and I wouldn't even imagine that I don't even know what it is, but you may be able to tell with your knowledge that these are invisible inks. They're magical invisible inks. So I don't know. That may be something that piques your interest.
Yeah. So never mind the rings. What is in that inkwell there?
I don't know. Simply inks. I figured that once I was done writing in my ledgers with this ink pot, and then I kind of picked this one up, then I would just go on with this one. I very much like the pot, though.
Well, hold on to the pot. I would take that other inkwell there. That I do some writing. I'm working on a book of publishing my various studies and findings from the age of from ancient times. I couldn't get into it with you. I'm sure you know nothing about it. But that ink seems of substance, and I would take it off of your hands.
I know something about books and things like that. I think. Yeah, you see my ledgers, they're all X's and everything like that. I probably can't even read or write. I just kind of mark things down. Just try to kind of pull it off. But obviously, this is worth something to you. So I could let it go for 10 pieces of copper.
10 copper. And do I have 10 copper?
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. That's in fact, I think Beha, this is probably worth quite a bit more than that.
Oh yeah.
Jump in whenever.
I would just like to say that Rose has been waiting kind of just off to the side of the road. She's probably been like buffing up some piece of leather that got smudged. And she kind of notices that Obeha is sort of dawdling while doing some sort of exchange with the farmhand guy. And she kind of she takes a long braided whistle that she wears around her neck out of her shirt, her tunic, and she goes and says, "Obeha, we have places to go. We have things to do."
No, I was just chatting with this charming and rustic farmer. What's your name?
My name is Jean-Jacques. Where is it that you are off to? Perhaps I have more things I could sell you or to your friends. I for sure, I'm headed to the market as well. I know it.
Oh, we couldn't possibly tell you. It's a very secret and
very top secret,
important mission.
No, yes, very important. And well, I suppose we could win some comrades to our cause. Why don't you walk with us a spell, young Jean-Jacques, and maybe we'll see if we like the cut of your jib. But we must make time. We've got to get to the salt market.
Oh, well, tally-ho then, as they say. Kind of like hop off, and I'm like, I will stay a little bit behind you in order to keep the flies off of you.
Would be appreciated.
An interesting thing arose as soon as you've blown that whistle and you're hearing their conversation, but then something is kind of, you half hear it in the distance, and you hear what sounds like several other whistles reply, but they're very strange tone. Like one of them sounds like a weird kind of high-pitched waily reed, and one's like an off-key clarinet, and one is almost like when you make that reed with grass as a kid and just make the squawking like bird sound. And you can't tell if it's like a band tuning up that's just terrible and out of tune, or if it's people with other whistles replying to you.
Noticing this, Rose just kind of coyly and quietly takes the whistle off and just kind of sticks it in her back pocket so that maybe no one notices that she was the one who blew it, because this kind of weirds her out.
And I, noticing that she's done that, I will pick up the pace. I'll come, John, and try to push us along a bit, as I know I'm sketchy at the best of times.
Mm-hmm. So out of character way this game works, it streamlines a lot of the making dice rolls and seeing what clue you uncover. Out of character, we kind of jump in and out of character. So out of character, the sort of goal of this next set, this area, is to learn the way to the salt market, which is what you're fictionally already doing. But round the bend of the road, you see all of you now, just off the road, there's a line of people. It looks like some kind of steam or smoke coming up from maybe a cooking fire. And there's all sorts of, it almost looks like tents that are folded up that are, being packed up again. And there's like a stray horse or donkey that they look in pretty poor shape. You approach, you see this whole ragged, motley crew of people of all shapes and sizes and costumes. In fact, a lot of them are wearing costumes of motley and gold and green. And you start to notice that almost all of them have some kind of instrument or another. And they're starting to serve a line of people from this massive cooking pot. Each person kind of comes up and they're talking, and it looks like it's almost like a soup kitchen happening. What do you all do?
I lean over to Obeha and say, "Is this the Bremen Town musicians then?"
I'm not sure. I don't know that I've seen their crest before. Perhaps we should approach and I'll turn back to Jean-Jacques and say, maybe you have someone who might be interested in your beats here.
Oh, my thoughts exactly. I'm gonna I'll catch up with you in just a moment. I'm gonna try to go find the person with the biggest pot and see if I can dump some of my semi-rotten vegetables on them.
Always look for the person with the biggest pot.
Yeah, as you walk up, there's in fact really one, almost a cauldron of a pot. There's a couple of these sturdy branches that have been stakes hammered into the ground to kind of hold it up over this fire. There's a few other like odd bent up cooking pots around. You get the impression that everyone in this group is just all banded together with whatever kind of pieces of things they may have stolen or are using to survive. And you all see the source of that, Rose, you see the source of that music now kind of behind them. There's a group that are, you can't tell if they're just tuning their instruments like they're getting ready to play or this is their actual song because it's this strange cacophony. They're mostly string instruments, wind instruments of whistles made from bone, conch shells, some sort of weird like bassoon thing that looks like it's just been put together from like pieces of pipe. Like everything's improvised and ramshackle. But John, John is saying, kisses a baby on the way. You see the person stirring the pot. They're almost using an oar. It's a very short, stubby, all the warts on his face, kind of wizened looking goblin with ears are kind of sticking out flat, just a mess of hair kind of balding on the top, just kind of glaring at each person going by. Is like, right, some for you. No, you've already had some. This must be some for all of the folks. And he kind of looks up at you and is like, you can't cut the line then.
Believe me, I'm not trying to cut the line, I promise. I'm simply the proprietor of a bunch of vegetables, which may be able to help your soup. Excuse me, is that coriander I smell? And I kind of take a whiff and, like, if I can, I'd like to try to take a taste of the soup and see if it's, like, any good at all.
Yeah. Oh, sure. Yeah, it's and as you're actually doing that, you notice someone brings up another bunch of like, right, we found these from the fields and starts just like throwing handfuls of, you know if it's grass or if it's like herbs or what. Mm-hmm. Again, you get the impression like maybe they're just making this all up or maybe they really know what they're doing.
Is it tasty?
Yeah.
Oh, it is? All right. Mm-hmm. I would like to, if possible, one of my occupation skills as a farmhand is I have a special knowledge of plants. I would like to potentially, like, I don't know whether there is something that they're about to throw in there randomly or something later that's poisonous or that I could figure out how to make it taste better or do better in order to get into their good graces and maybe make them buy some of my stuff.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Let's do a hunt roll of this because you're just kind of trying to discover information. So if you have do you have the dice roller?
Yep.
You get the link? Cool. So it sounds like you're already using one of your skills as a farmer. So that'll just be 2d6.
Gabriel, you might be able to hit that share screen thing so that you can actually share the dice roller in the thing if you wanted to. Not necessary, but
that's okay. It might confuse me more than anybody.
Sure.
Yeah, we have a little online dice roller.
All right, so reroll selected. There we go. So my top one is a 3.
All right, so you encounter something terrible. And we're sort of lightening the tone of that a little bit. This game that we're using, it's great because the rules are simple, but it's mostly about dangerous, dark, grim adventures.
So I think that while I'm doing this, I mean, kind of the whole point is I'm like trying to help them kind of help them mold this stew or do whatever. And while I'm doing so, I'm kind of asking, so what's all this about? I'm on my way to the market, but this does not seem like the salt market I was told. There's a bunch of musicians and what's going on here?
Yeah, so there's like a pair of twins that are throwing these herbs in, and they're also at first you think they're children, and then you're like, maybe you're just naturally short. This game is kind of calling them goblins, but not in your classic evil sense. They're just oddly shaped. They're throwing that in. They say, right, well, clearly you haven't been here before. This is the congregation of the Piper. We all go by many names. Some of us gestures towards the ones playing, call ourselves the Gutter Minstrels, or the Dawn Chorus, or the Rats sometimes. But we're all just here following the call of the Piper to fix what needs fixing in the world. And the one thing that you notice that is disturbing or terrible. As they're stirring the pot and throwing in the herbs, there's a bit of like clinking on the bottom, and you realize that the bottom of the pot's full of bones, which could just be bone broth. You don't know.
I love it.
Sometimes the person with the biggest pot also it's the bone pot.
There's a reason why they've got the big pot.
Yep.
That's right. That's right. Is this something where I can kind of like I get a weird feeling about these bones, or this is like normal bones do?
I think what's weird is just the size of the pot. Like you could totally chop up and fit a person in there if that's what you were trying to do. Like they scoop out to serve. Basically, this ore is like a giant ladle that they're serving into like a smaller bowl to then distribute. It's almost like this makeshift camp of people, and they're all getting fed. But in the process, there's several chunks that it looks like it's a chunk of a femur. Could be a cow bone. Could be.
I just kind of back away, and again, if I'm able to sell a couple of my vegetables, that's fine. But that's not kind of the whole point. So I'm just gonna like kind of hastily kind of head back and try to get back with my friends and just that didn't work out quite as I had imagined.
No, was the stew any good?
Surprisingly tasty, but maybe avoid it.
No, I'm a bit hungry. I won't lie. I'm walking this road. Perhaps I could go pay for a bowl and inquire as to the direction to the salt market. Is anyone with me?
Hospitality is also one of my, what do you call them, rituals.
Oh.
So I would be very happy to try to break bread very calmly and gracefully with these people. If you don't ascertain, Jean-Jacques, that they are going to harm us.
I don't see how they could. They have instruments, and I have a big hammer.
Yes.
Yeah,
most of them.
Go ahead.
Well, maybe if we just ask them to sing us a song, then they'll be doing what they love, and we can sort of, tit for tat with them, as it were.
I'm here to follow your lead, but I won't be having any of the soup.
Oh, well, I'll be happy to chew the fat and chew the fat with them.
So actually, you can do the ritual if you want to, but I think if you are doing the song thing, I have several lists of song names here. If you want to, because someone hears you say, "Did you say sing a song?" And like, like a few other people gather around you with weird instruments, and you notice a couple odd things, Rose. That some of them they're almost all made of salvaged things, and you see there's one that's like that little cigar box banjo, but it looks like it used to be quite a valuable jewelry box at one point. You see what looks like maybe an antique violin, like things that are maybe way too valuable for some of these folks to have as far as the rest of their clothing, and they're kind of dirty. They've been on the road a long time, but they'll gather around ready to sing. And they say, this old, kind of hunched over, stringy gray hair, very wiry, old woman, like in a kind of tattered leather jacket, takes out this fiddle and looks at you and says like, "Would you be wanting to hear a song to stir the blood? A song of good cheer? We know songs of sad times. We know songs of our history. What kind of song do you know?" And if you want to tell me those categories, I will try to pull up a title.
Just based on the appearance of the soup to be a bone soup, perhaps a song to stir the blood seems.
So
relevant.
she starts rattling off these titles. Interrupt me at any point if there's one that you think you would know, and maybe you can make up, or if you know a similar one. But she starts saying,
I would like to throw it to Obeha to select which song, because he knows about old stuff. So I think he should select whichever the song it is.
Yes, if I'm not mistaken, and I really am, I think that these are the Congregation of the Piper, a wandering band of goblin minstrels who get together and sing. They have a rich musical, verbal history, an orally sung history, and if I'm not mistaken, that is the goblin 6-bone soup that's being made over there, and I think the recipe for that soup is actually recorded in song. Am I not correct in that?
Yes, this and she goes, yes, that is that. Well, we have different versions of that. We have one that we call "Carve the Bones." We have the one of "Soon Shall They Fall," and another one like nods and he's like takes out these like weird chef knives and it's like clacking them together. You don't know if they're being sharpened or if he's playing them as an instrument, but they're like machetes.
Yeah.
Call the Hounds. We have the one. Oh, Every Vulture's Share. That's another one. A good one.
Oh, yes, that's a good old one. Every Vulture's Share. Yes, a real thigh slapper, that one.
I will tell you a couple bits of lore because you're an antiquarian. Other things that you would know about the pipers, minstrels. Basically, they're one of these groups that there's the opinions are all contradict each other. Some people say that they're just a bunch of rebels, peasants uprising to steal from the rich and overthrow the lords. Other people say they're secret revolutionaries in disguise. Other people say they're a bunch of cultists because they all talk about this figure known as the Piper, that they've all heard the song of the Piper. And there's rumors about the Piper that they're a fey creature who's just he was ancient and just is amused at seeing civilizations fall. Other people say that the Piper was a disgraced noble who's basically become like a Robin Hood type of figure. So all these rumors contradict each other, but there's all kinds of tales about them. But you appear to be meeting at least a faction of these folk because they all refer to the Piper. If you want to kind of show them your version of the song or ask them to kind of start it, I'm still going to let you guys lead that.
Yes.
Sky, you're muted.
A bit rusty. Rose, do you recall the beginning of Every Vulture's Share, the original text, which I believe I
actually have a thing I wrote that's called that, which I could pull.
Let me scan my memory. Yes, pull it up.
Yeah.
There we go.
Oh, dang.
That does remind us. That's taking me back.
Yep.
You described it, and now we know what it looks like, and it's terrifying.
I'm also encouraging Facebook viewers who we have a few people watching right now. So I'm encouraging them to leave the name of other songs by the Pipers in the comments. So,
nice.
That's
awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
I'm just going to drop this thing in the chat. And if you want to look at it.
In the private chat. Private chat.
Yes. No pressure, though. But they start going through different versions of that while you're like, some of you haven't heard and they're weird and you're not even sure if they're just making up the words or if it's a language you don't understand. The weird thing is that all of them, like, they know whatever the song is, they're all on the same page somehow. Like, and a few of them, as you notice, the ones who aren't singing, they might be serving the soup, but they all kind of stop and they kind of crane their heads like they're listening from the edge of the woods to something far away whenever music starts happening.
Oh. Is this Every Vulture's Share?
Yes.
Okay. Got it.
But that's just for fun. You guys do your thing.
Well, it's so easy when it's right here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Should we go for it?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's a lot of verses, so I'm thinking we should sing a part of it. But let's pass them around and we'll pretend to sing them as different members of the Pipers. So we're not going to sing them as our characters. These are other characters around the fire.
Mm-hmm. You want me to go ahead?
Man.
Yes.
Take it.
Yeah.
All right.
Come on, you hopeful sailors and seekers bold and true. It is a tale of warning dire that I must tell you. For if you seek your fortune with that treacherous company, you'll get no pay but what lies at the bottom of the sea.
The bottom of the sea.
Ah, the bottom of the sea.
The bottom of the sea is the life for me.
The bottom of the sea, sea.
'Twas bright and blue the sky above when first our voyage began. That glorious maidens promised her crew loyal to her men. Our captain whistled merrily, so sure of our reward. With gleaming eyes he hinted at the riches stowed aboard.
A shadow dust then o'er the deck, the wind was now but dead. The crew were struck silent, and their hearts now full of dread. For every sailor knows the truth, the depths beyond the blue. The ocean often gives, but always takes what is her due.
And they close with that final verse, and they say, "Now never shall we sail in the thrall of merchant lords. We fly the black skull fearlessly for all that it affords. No deeds at sea be judged, for every vulture has her share. The saints know if your bones are black when fishes pick them bare." And they all kind of like
when fishes
Pick
pick them bare. Aye.
And meanwhile, Obeha's like, this soup is delicious.
Yes.
I can't quite put my finger on what the ingredients might be, but it's delicious.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a secret spice of some kind?
There's many spices. Most of them stolen from those estates who want to hoard the medicines. It's who can afford an alchemist or a leech these days? We need to make our own, so we had to fix that problem. And anytime we need more, we know the tunnels into that estate. We simply replenish.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I think with that joining in song and that camaraderie, you realize this is a very, like, anyone is welcome to join the congregation kind of thing. Although there's clearly some other weirder stuff going on, they don't really have a problem with you joining in the song. And they will happily point you in the way of the salt market, as some of them are going that way themselves. But they won't really tell you why. They're a little shifty about it.
And nor will we tell them why we wish to go to the salt market. But let's, strengthen numbers. Perhaps a rousing another 14 choruses of the vulture's share as we walk down the road toward the salt market.
I would like to hear, actually, as you the path is going to be winding more and more downhill. You realize you're getting towards that coast. Oddly enough, that very piratey sounding song, getting towards the ocean. But each of you has heard some kind of rumor about either the things you can find at this market, maybe a vendor you're hoping to run into, or something awful that happened there. If you have any things like that you want to add that you may have heard. Yep.
I've heard that it's the place to go for nets. So you can find, like, not only like well-crafted, very beautifully woven craftsman nets, but you can also find enchanted nets. So I'm as someone who has only recently become a smuggler, I'm very much keeping my eyes open for someone who might, know his way around the net.
Mm-hmm.
If you know what I mean.
You've heard actually that because there's a certain type of kelp, they actually call it vampire kelp because it's barbed, and if it catches on to you, there's all kind of terrible stories about divers who've swum into a patch of this and were bled dry, literally, as a carnivorous seaweed almost. But if you know how to harvest it and make a net out of it, it's quite nothing will ever escape that net.
I think that I've heard of basically, as I was formerly part of kind of a lycanthropic circle where you can't really control yourself when you're in that form. It's ravenous. You just want to destroy everything, eat everything that you can. But that it is a community that you can find others of those circles that are there. And there are rumors that there are people there who have worked together with alchemists and witches in order to be able to try to form concoctions that will help them control themselves in this state.
Oddly enough, there's another rumor you've maybe you heard, while you were amongst these pipers, maybe you've heard it elsewhere, but they say that some of those pipers minstrels are actually like outlawed alchemists that are all beast-bitten themselves like you, and they found some kind of temporary cure to keep it in check, but they didn't want to cure themselves entirely. And in fact, this one rumor goes that they're working on a specific potion that they call the cure that they want to feed to their masters and lords to turn them into the beasts that they really are permanently. So there's some subversion there.
Could I ask, as an aside, in, I guess, out of game, but also about game, have Obeha, Rose, and/or Jean-Jacques shared amongst any of us what our background is? Like, I'm thinking that Rose would want to keep her background as a noble somewhat. She would want to be elusive about that and not share that. So I'm thinking her voice kind of gives her away that she is from, a schooled, way of life, but ultimately she would have kept that hidden. So I was just curious whether Jean-Jacques or Obeha had shared what their former life was with us.
I think with very little prompting, Obeha will claim to have excelled through the ranks of the Storm Seekers Arcanum, and to be a traveling academic who is seeking to gather knowledge of the Storm Seekers origins. But in fact, he is I think it's fairly clear to Rose, at least, maybe not to Jean-Jacques, who's just met, but that he's there are some fell attributes about this person. He's not just a goodly old academic.
No, I don't think I've said anything yet, although I imagine I'll let it fly pretty freely at some point. But I think the only weird thing is that I often kind of hold my stature and extremities in kind of a weird, creepy way, animalistic, and maybe I've got more weird patches and tufts of hair than you might expect of a normal person.
That's what I was wondering, was whether there was any tell that you used to be a bear. So that's great. And we're not using nearly enough bear puns with Jean-Jacques yet. So
I'm only just getting
barely.
Started.
Yeah. Actually, speaking of sort of sharing each other's stories, I think that by the time you get to where the market is, it's and I'm backtracking, I think you're all walking on foot, so it takes you most of the rest of the day. Sun is starting to set. You're kind of at the edge of the cliff and the beach. Everything's kind of closing up, and it's all makeshift pieces of driftwood, shuttered windows that are going up to block. There's a couple cave entrances, which maybe the rest of the markets are inside, and stitched together pieces of old sails and netting and stuff is kind of drawn across to keep the wind out. But there's various little alcoves where people make cooking fires, and you can kind of find a place to rest for the night before the real market starts at dawn. As the day's catch comes in and that sort of thing. So we'll kind of frame to the next scene there, where you guys, if you want to talk over that campfire, maybe whatever you choose to tell each other while you're there, or anything else you want to add to the scene, we'll just do that next.
I think that at some point, maybe you guys if it was nighttime, you kind of shun me a little bit. I'm kind of more of a stinky guy. I would travel with you most of the day, but then I we're gonna do our own thing for. But when it starts to kind of really get dark and you guys are sitting around and maybe having a good time and chatting, I kind of creepily kind of saunter up. Excuse me.
Yes.
Yes.
I don't mean to barge in again. I promise. I'm not here to sell. Not here to sell. But just wondering. We are near the salt market. You've heard some of the strange tales about what happens at this market, no?
Indeed.
Anyways, I'm just saying. Bright fire, multiple people. I could provide some protection for you if you need.
Oh, well,
Protection.
I didn't get a chance to describe this to you all, but you probably already noticed I have gorgeous leather armor on, but it's leather, so it's really not very useful. So protection might be in order. And I mean, yeah, let's hear more, though, before we sign off on anything. I barely know you.
Oh, there we go.
I've got a pair of like gauntlets that are on my really fancy gauntlets that are on my belt, and they're kind of my only remaining piece of armor. I'm just like, well, I don't have any fancy armor, not anymore. I kind of I don't know. Maybe I grew out of it, but these are quite strong, well made, and I've got a big hammer, and I pull out this like big wooden maul that I'm like dragging with me. Again, I don't wield it like I used to, but anyways, I could smash any nasty foul doer if need be.
And I look at Rose and go, well, neither one of us are very good at fisticuffs, as far as I know. I'm not very good in a row.
Then it's settled, and I just like sit down and what are you eating? And then I'm like,
you're like in between us. We're like,
yeah,
Jesus.
Yeah, I'm thinking. I probably like was able to, with my hospitality background, probably get some sort of little shred of something off a goblin when we were around the fire, singing songs.
Make some sort of trade.
Yeah. So I've got a little goblin charcuterie.
Oh, some of the leftover cuttings from the 6-bone stew.
Yep, exactly.
Lovely.
There's actually some of those, Gabriel, like those fish that we had in Richmond.
Oh yeah.
The what are they called? Salt. Were they called
something weird?
Salt toads.
Sugar toads.
Sugar toads.
It's like the whole fish almost, but it's really soft, like a chicken wing. Yeah.
Like the size of a lighter, no larger, and like a little tiny boned fish that's been like fried. So like I have 3 of those, so I give you each one.
I see some of the cuttings of the 6-bone stew and also some of that, and I'll start eating it, and then I just kind of go, screw it, and then I like just start going for it anyways, and I'm like, at least it's not rotten vegetables. Thank you for your hospitality.
Hospitality,
along with that,
one of her many talents.
Part of that charcuterie actually was, I'm going to say there's at least a very fine cheese and very fine cured meat that, again, strikes you that would probably cost some decent coin at a market. And those folks didn't look like they were just carrying around lots of money. So maybe, got it from somewhere. But it's great. It's delicious.
Nice. I think throughout the evening, like if I'm sure I've got some kind of crappy wine and everything like that, and I'm probably sharing that and everything. And as I start to get kind of sloshy and everything like that, as I might imagine that I do, I just say, hey, you're not going to believe this. You are not going to believe it. Okay. Okay. You ready? Are you ready?
Wait. Hold on. Should we play Two Truths and a Lie?
I do not know this game. Sounds like simple facts to me.
I mean, it sounds like you want to share something that you we might find unbelievable. So
you want me to lie to you as well?
It's a good time when you have something that sounds like it couldn't really be true. It's a good time to play Two Truths and a Lie, because you can like share 2 things that are true about yourself and then share the one thing that is a lie, and then we figure out, I don't know. Does that sound like fun?
A ridiculous game, and I like it. You go first. You.
All right. Well, I've been to China. It's one.
Far off land called China.
My father's a wealthy nobleman, corrupt and greedy as shit. And well, I am planning to go to the salt market to acquire nets to then steal my father's ship and travel on the seven seas as an adventurer and, steal from every rich man I see.
Rose, have you played this game that you've suggested before?
What?
Well, I guess, you know what? I think you have been to China.
But she said two things about her father.
That's maybe she played two lies and a truth. Did you get it backwards, Rose?
Well, let's just say I've been to Japan. You got me. I think I've had too much of your terrible swill, and I passed your wine bottle back to you that I was maybe drinking a little too fast.
Oh, not too fast. I'll have a bit of that wine more
all right.
myself.
It's only terrible because I mix it with vinegar to mask the smell.
Yes.
Your turn, Obeha. I don't think Jean-Jacques wants to go second. I think he wants to go last because I think he thinks he's really going to shock us.
Yeah, okay. Two truths and a lie, eh? Let's see. One, I have command over the elements of water. Two, I am a renowned scholar in the realms of storm seeking and storm majory.
That's definitely true.
Oh, don't get ahead of me.
It does seem that way.
Yes, and three. Wait, it's two truths and a lie. Better make up a lie now. I have committed heinous crimes all across the land and am on the run from authorities. Anyway, you figured it out.
Yes, I don't think that a man such as yourself could have committed such heinous crimes. I mean, look at you. You're obviously a learned man, and look at all of the rings.
You're trying to say there's more to all of us than meets the eye or something?
No. Here we are, bearing our souls over this wine drink.
Did you just say bear?
Me? No, of course not.
Oh, well,
Wait. Before you go, and then I take out my very fancy bottle of wine. I've been saving this for a very special occasion, but, being that we only have an hour and 35 minutes here, it seems like there's no better time than now. If you all were to share this bottle of wine with me, perhaps it would mean you could also be crewmates with me on a pirate ship.
Wait a second. Is this pirate ship leaving this place?
Now that I offer this, I realize that it might sound like I'm trying to bait you either into drinking the wine or to being my crewmate. Neither one of them sounds... yeah. I've had too much to drink.
I've heard enough. If you have a ship, I will get on the ship and I will do whatever you want me to do.
Wine
I
club.
I will cook the swabbers and I will do anything you want to. Yes.
Yeah, I have one last thing that I must tend to. But then, if I can find what I'm looking for, I would gladly join you on the boat. The closer to be to storms, and I could finish my writing at last.
And you do control the elements of water?
Yes, here and there. I may have, yes, as you know, I studied and was the top pupil in my class at the Storm Seekers Arcanum. Have I said that before? And And so I have learned, I have an affinity for water movement, and I'm trying to learn more.
Yes,
He
the
uses
lie.
a bunch of big words.
I do, yes. It is one of my talents.
Okay,
we
no,
have-
shut your mouth. It's my turn to go.
Yes, Jean-Jacques, go.
I'm going to blow your mind with my lie. But the problem is I want to tell you, and if you think it's a lie, then you won't think it's awesome like it was. Anyways, so here we go. Two truths and a lie. All right. I have killed and maimed many people. I have a chateau that I farm my land, and I come to do this for a hobby to sell my vegetables.
Yes.
And I, at one point, I was a bear.
I'm sorry.
Sorry? Could you say
What?
that?
You disappeared?
A pair.
Yeah,
He was a pair, like he used to be part of a couple, and
You were
now
a
he's
pair.
alone.
no, like bear. I was a bear.
You
It was so cool. I was big. I was like 8 or 10 feet tall, or 2 meters or so, depending on what you feel and use as a system. And I was like 2.5 meters or something like that. My math is not so good anymore.
mine is excellent. Yes.
But anyways, big claws, and I would destroy and maim. It wasn't my fault, though. I did not know what I was doing.
So wait, this is why you hold your arms like this a little bit.
Okay, this is what you take out of it. You comment on my awkward form. I can't help it.
No. I really think we need you. I really think we need you. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to draw attention to your physicality. That's very not. I've had far too much to drink.
Yes. You know, your story does give me pause, but I think, if anything, I believe that you once were a bear, and I think you'd make a fine companion on the road. We're not, Rose and I don't mean to speak for you, Rose, we don't shun anyone except those who seek to use power to retain power and keep the powerless away from the means
Without power.
Yes.
Well, this
I
is
may
a
have
good
too
thing
much to drink
because
at this point.
I can no longer turn into a bear anymore. So don't worry about it. You won't get mauled in your sleep or anything like that.
Excellent.
But I mean, like, maybe we could figure out a way for you to, like, groom your bear abilities so that you could use them for that protection that you were
Yes,
offering.
you could sometimes be a bear. That might be sweet.
I mean, that if I was a bear, that would be a bear necessity.
Yes, it would be nice if you could be, like, barely bear-like.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Also, I would just like to note that my mother has commented that this is theater.
It is
Indeed.
high theater.
Yeah.
The highest.
The
Thank you, mother.
greatest thought. Yes.
And anyways, and I keep drinking, and I sniff it, and I just take some, and I kind of,
Yeah.
and then I say, it's time for me to go to bed. I cannot do this any longer.
Neither
Try
can I.
not to eat any people in your sleep.
Yes, yeah.
Maybe just one.
Who's the last to go to sleep?
And just like as we're going to bed, like I don't know if you have a tent or something like that I'm just gonna weasel my way into. But I'm like, speaking of eating people, I am the only person today who has not eaten a person. Bye bye. And then
Didn't he sip some of that soup though before we did? I feel
Well, he
whatever.
didn't eat a person. I think he
It
just had the
smelled
broth.
good, at least. Yeah, I don't know if he ate it. But...
I'll take the last watch because, frankly, we just barely opened this very fancy bottle of wine, and I'm going to have to figure out some way either to file down some sort of a stick in order to recork it, or I might just polish it off myself while writing down what I remember of that shanty.
And, you know, I do have a skill for obfuscation, which could be verbal obfuscation, like lying, but also I could interpret it to mean like creating illusory. So I will also hide our little sleeping area so that we need not worry about monsters in the night. I don't know if I need to roll for that, but I will if I must.
No, I think because it's such a short session, we're doing a lot of this without rolls, which is actually pretty fun. But just I think if you just describe what it looks like, that works.
Well, I lay down in the tent next to a wine sour Jean-Jacques, who's probably already snoring like a bear, and I guess Rose is sitting up with her wine, drinking and writing, and I will close my eyes and focus on the shadows around us in whatever little nook we are will slowly thicken and compress as if a canopy of trees had wrapped around us. So we're not quite invisible or wrapped in darkness, but we are very enshrouded. You'd have to be looking for us to see us.
It's a little bit like the tiny hut spell, maybe, perhaps.
It's sort of like, well, you know, I don't like to brag, but I did study at the Stormseekers Arcanum, and it's like a little thundercloud that I've created around us. So it's just a dark, foggy, low pressure. So it might be slightly colder than we'd like, but we will be protected.
Is that a ritual to do that?
No, I just made that up.
Okay, that's cool.
I mean, it is.
We'll come back to it. I like that. Sure.
I have,
like a very
I have a
subtle
ritual that is similar to that. That is the mask that you cover and makes you invisible to people's senses. But this is sort of a lesser, I think, like intuitive sorcerer version of that. Yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna come back to that. I think so. Rose, you're sitting out this sort of like a big driftwood log a little bit away from the camp. You're finishing the last of the wine and writing. You hear the tides coming in and going out, just very lulling, constant sound. At some point while you're writing, you hear another sound. There's just a bit of it. Kind of like a occasional wet slapping sound on the sand. Like some kind of footsteps. And you see kind of from the edge of the surf, there's something that's kind of, something kind of moving in the surf. It's a little bit obscured. It seems to be just kind of like feet slapping, kind of crawling along where the surf hits the beach. Kind of stops across from your camp.
Okay, but I don't see anything yet.
There's a shape, you can't quite tell what it is. Yeah.
I'm gonna put my hand around my back where I have a very ornate braided leather belt, and on the back of it hangs my light crossbow, my hand crossbow, and I'm gonna just put my hand on that, and I'm gonna try to just like kind of squat backwards step towards the tent so that I might kick at the tent to wake my friends.
Cool. So you're trying to avoid drawing attention to yourself.
Correct.
Sounds good. Let's do a risk roll. Let's play the game too. No.
Let's play the game.
So
one of the blue dice for me is just gone. It's disappeared. So I'm not sure. Sometimes
I think it just got dragged out.
There we go. Got it.
Okay. So really quick, the risk roll, do you have any skills? Or before we do the dice, we should just mention, so what's at stake? You're trying to avoid detection, kind of sneak back and alert your companions. What could go wrong?
For me or my companion's answer?
Oh, so the table gets to answer that. Yeah, in general.
I mean, obviously, she is discovered by whatever that is. I don't know if it is something that seeks to attack us.
Yeah.
But, you know.
I could also trip trying to walk backwards.
Yep.
Crossbow bolt goes off.
Very wrong. Okay, cool. Yeah, and then any skills you have, I think you have a few, right?
I'm skilled at hiding, and I'm also skilled at deception. So I think either one of those would be applicable here.
Yes, you get a dice for that, and then so to kind of describe it a little better too, as you saw the shape, and you do see like as the waves come and go. At one point when they clear, it's almost like the moon light comes through a little clearer, and there's like a glint of like two eyes and a bit of an elongated shape kind of resting in the surf, kind of looking in your general direction. You can't tell if it sees you or not. So Devil's Bargains and this is where she gets to take an extra dice if she agrees to a Devil's Bargain. This game is very collaborative for people who don't know how it works. There's a lot of asking the table what might happen, what things look like. It's not all just me telling a story that I have pre-written. So any Devil's Bargains for what will happen either way?
So correct me if I'm wrong. You're trying to, like, the role is so that you can try to sneak and wake us up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically so that I can have it be all of us against this thing as opposed to it being just me and then you guys being, awoken.
So I guess the Devil's Bargain would be that that you are able to wake us up successfully, and you're able to make it back, but that as soon as you, like, it may not even see you, but as soon as you like lock eyes with it, you're kind of weirdly hypnotized, and you're just kind of like in a trance.
Okay, so like
That could be one.
after I've woken you up?
Yeah. I don't know, you succeed. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that sounds great.
You don't have to take
I
the
love
Devil's Bargain.
Well, I love it because I've got this very easy to use from a distance weapon, but I'm not going to be able to use it easily if I'm like.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll do that.
That's cool. All right.
So another.
Yeah, 2 light dice.
Okay.
Unless you want to add a dark dice to risk your body and mind. Cool.
Yeah, sure. Well, no, I'm good.
Yeah, it's only a little bit of time
so
left. What could go
I'm
wrong?
rolling 2 light dice, the white ones. Okay. And I got a 6 and a 2.
Nice. So the 6 is a perfect success. So the Devil's Bargain does happen. So you do succeed, and describe that in a second, but during the course of it, as you're kind of keeping your gaze on this weird pair of eyes to make sure it doesn't detect you, somehow you like have a hard time looking away from the glint of those eyes. But otherwise, what does it look like?
So yeah, I'm thinking, Rose, the reason that hiding is one of her backgrounds is because she was always underfoot in her parents' ritzy home. So she knows very well how to kind of like, be kind of Matrix style sneaking backwards. So we're maybe sitting on some sort of a log, and she's kind of like 1 foot behind each foot. And I'm thinking the tent is some sort of just a piece of cloth draped over a tree or something like that. So I just like kick at it backwards, kind of donkey kick style. And maybe I got like a one of those gumballs from a tree that was fallen near the campground, and I kind of toss it behind me just so that if you don't hear the kick, you get hit by a gumball. And yeah, that's what it looks like. But then as I wake you, I kind of look up, and these yellow swirling eyes hit me in the eyeballs, and it's kind of like that thing where you're starting to get really sleepy looking at something, and you kind of like can't knock your wits straight. So I just start to lose myself in the swirl.
It's almost like when you're like, maybe if you're driving on a dark road on the highway and someone has their high beams on, so it's just a little bit bright and slightly dizzying. somehow. But both Jean and Obeha you're roused in the middle of the night by your companion here, and as you kind of peek out of the tent and you see the moon's bright overhead, lighting up the surf, and you see this creature starting to kind of step its way out of the surf, low along the sand, and it's got a very elongated snout, pair of eyes, and opens its jaws a little bit, and there's like a glint, like it has teeth, but it's hard to tell what this thing is made out of. It almost looks like parts of it are falling away, like layers of skin or paper, and the teeth have a weird jagged shape to them, like maybe they're metal, or they're almost like keys.
I do have a skill with myths. If this is
with
something
what?
I'm with myths.
Oh, cool.
If this is a mythic creature that I could identify, or is this just an unknown beast from the water?
Yeah, that could be cool. What do you hope to do? Basically, it's. You also notice that your companion Rose has woken you, and then just seems to be kind of like spaced out, just not really reacting more and staring at this thing, and it's starting to slowly approach you. Yeah.
Thinking at first glance as we look out, if I can identify what it is, maybe I would know what weaknesses it has.
Cool.
Because I am weak and unable to do anything, and Jean-Jacques has a hammer, but I would tell him, like, hit it in the,
Yeah.
jejunum.
Yeah. I think this would be a risk roll.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, hang on, here's the anatomy book. Yeah, I think let's do a risk roll, because you kind of have limited time as it's approaching you to kind of get a quick read on it. So you have the skill of myths already. Things that could go wrong, obviously, it gets too close to you or attacks you or something before you can really figure it out.
Right.
Any devil's bargains from the table?
And sorry, your specific goal, Obeha, is
To identify it and find some weakness in it. If I know what it is and I go like, oh, it's like you got to hit it on the back of the heel, so that we know what it is and it's not just a dark monster.
my devil's bargain would be that ability of sort of figuring out the weakness works in a mirrored way. So like you find out a weakness, but it also finds out your weakness specifically.
I hope it can't talk. It'll be like, this guy lies. Okay. I would take that. I think I'm all weaknesses except for my ability to do things with water. I don't know how that would, because I don't know what kind of beast this is. I'm not sure how that would play out, but I would be fine with that as a devil's bargain.
Yeah, or it could be more. Yeah, it spots a vulnerability in you or something, like it sees an opportunity. Maybe if you're kind of creeping up to look at it. Yeah,
I would. Yeah, you can narrate that. How detrimental to Obeha in whatever way you see fit.
That's cool. Well, it's all kind of setting up and establishing the lay of the land before anything else happens. So let's do the risk roll. So 2 light dice, unless you're adding a dark dice for.
I am not ready to risk body and mind. 2 light dice. Come on.
And I should mention, I'm kind of playing it straight, but we did talk about ruin also being maybe reputation. So far, I don't know if that's really come up, but
well,
you
that's
can
a
always
3
broaden that.
and a 1.
Ooh, yeah. You can add a dark dice and reroll everything if you want. Try again.
I risk my body and mind. No, forget it. Let's eat some consequences.
Yeah. So a 3 is a failure. So you're trying to place it as you're watching it get a little closer. You realize, she'll be right back. Rose is just hypnotized. Fair enough. It's almost like one of those long, like the Chinese dragon, where it's like almost a long serpent with little feet.
Right.
So as it comes closer, like it keeps coming out of the water, and you realize the thing is pretty long. It's not huge, but it's very lengthy. And the thing that's confusing to you is, again, it appears to be made out of some other material. It doesn't look like it's a normal reptile. And as the surf kind of washes up towards you, like some of those flaking layers come up, and you realize like it's sheets of paper. And then you kind of have this moment where you're like, this is maybe made out of paper and books and stuff like that. The same moment when you're seeing that, it looks towards you and kind of you have this weird sensation of like how awkward it is, when you're trying to walk or run on sand and how unsure your footing is. And this thing is low to the ground and it is very short and just kind of starts clawing in the sand, running right towards you. So it sees you kind of stumble a little bit for a second and then starts to come faster towards you. So at this point, it's going to enter combat, I think.
Yeah, I'm ready to. Is that going to happen right this second?
Yeah, or we can wait a second if we need to.
So no. I was just saying I'm going to if I had the chance to do it like right before it gets on Obeha, I'm get my drunken kind of hair out of the way and I see this dragon running.
It sounds like
running at him. Yeah.
That's Obeha screaming.
I would like to use my ritual of binding to hold an animal in place.
Whoa.
Yeah, let's.
I'm able to.
Yeah, we could do that. I think that the thing is, it is starting to close with Obeha. But
Actually, I take it back. You know what? My character is drunk. It just woke up. It saw this thing. Like, I'm not in any mind to do anything. And I've got my big hammer in my hand. I think this whole thing, I'm like, you woke me up. Why'd you wake me up for? Oh, and I'm like putting on my gauntlets. And then I just take this big hammer and I'm going to run at it. Yeah, I think that makes more sense. We're going to smash.
Either way, we can do either way. I just like to kind of fictionally position it.
We're going to Hulk smash.
Running. Okay. Cool. So combat is very straightforward. First, everyone is just going to, at least assuming, so for Rose, Obeha was trying to get a read of what this creature was about. The thing that was confusing was that it was almost like a Chinese dragon, like a long serpentine creature with like short legs slithering out of the water. But it almost looked like it was shedding layers, and those layers seemed to be like paper or pieces of books. Could not figure out what it was. It saw him kind of stumble and be awkward on the sand at the same time that he realized how deft and quick it was to maneuver. So it's closing with him. Combat's about to start. Jean-Jacques running in. What is Rose doing? That's right. Rose is still.
Sorry,
staring.
am I still?
I think Rose is stunned, right? Or let's.
Yeah, and I also felt like that worked perfectly since I just sort of walked out of the room and wouldn't have known what happened.
And from whatever it's worth, I think that in my drunken kind of stupor and like I'm like, why'd you wake me up? I think I like kind of shove into her as I'm drunkenly stumbling out. I don't know whether that brings her, I don't know, but.
That's cool. I like that kind of breaks her gaze for a second. So each of you roll just 1d6. It doesn't really matter which one. Just keep track of what the number is and let me know.
I got a 4.
You're muted, Sky.
I got a 6. Sorry.
All right.
I'm rolling high today. This is potentially setting us up for bad things.
Hey, I got a 3.
Nice. And so keep track of those numbers, and I'm doing it out of order. What is your weak point in the middle of this combat? So just narratively describe kind of what's a way that in fighting this thing you might expose yourself or be vulnerable.
I think that I hate paper cuts. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, okay.
So I think I'm just absolutely drunk, and I see nothing else but just like this big hammer that I'm kind of too weak and gangly to wield anymore, probably. Like I'm all in. If I smash this thing with the hammer, it's gonna go great. But I'm completely leaving myself completely open, and I don't have a way to dodge anything.
Makes sense.
I think Obeha is unable to protect himself at all, but also I think he might be really fascinated with this beast being made of papers and books and want to trap it or something. So I think he's unwilling to. He has now traded places with Rose. He is transfixed, trying to figure out a way to. He's presenting a very large, immovable, unmoving target.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say, sorry, these, I was thinking, are you wanting more of like a philosophical weak point? Because I was thinking of a physical weak point, and then, which, yes, sorry.
I mean, I don't know that either is. I went with philosophical because
It doesn't matter.
have no
Yeah.
strong points as a fighter. Period.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Then I'll say, like my weak point is that I'm very like determined and everything, but I think it's just that I'm starting off from a perspective of having just been hypnotized. So
Sure.
I think anything that's going to involve wit or having to be sharp. So yeah, like I mean, having to shoot straight is going to be a weak point.
Sure. Yeah, so keep those numbers in mind that came up. So basically what we're going to do is I will roll a dark dice for each of you. And this is to see how well y'all do in the fight. And if your number comes up, that means you were hit in the process. So here we go. 3 dark dice. 1, 4, and 6.
Wow.
So the good news is, so we add the 2 highest. So you all managed to kill this thing or incapacitate it if that's what you were trying to do. But whoever had this 4 and the 6, that was Rose and Jean. Is that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Our ruin goes up.
Yes.
Okay. Just want to make sure I knew what it meant when you get hit in the weak point. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. How about you each describe kind of what it looks like as you're fighting this thing? Because you all managed to either kill it, or again, if Obeha, if you weren't necessarily trying to kill it, but maybe incapacitate it. What does it look like in the fight? And then I'll describe the bad part.
So I, basically just drunkenly run at this thing, which I see scurrying toward Obeha, and I just wheel this hammer around and just drive it right into kind of the middle part, and just a whole bunch of sheets go flying everywhere. And I don't know whether you said there were keys or like other metallic parts of what's going on, but maybe unbeknownst to me, this shrapnel almost kind of like explodes and like, kind of cuts my legs and belly and stuff like that, and then little shards of keys or metal or paper or whatnot, basically just kind of like jagged glass just kind of screams me all over. But it does a pretty darn good job of smacking this paper dragon.
Actually, I'm going to go with the paper cut thing you mentioned. So I think as you break half of it, the back end, the tail like whips around and thrashes at your legs, and it is like startlingly sharp. It looks like it's soggy, but there's still pieces in there that are like almost like calcified, aged, sharp edges of paper and spines of books, and that tears you up a little bit.
I just yell out in pain, and I just turn to Rose. You said you've been to China.
It was Japan, remember? So yeah, I think I'm thinking that Rose is actually gonna get walloped by like a spine of a book. Like,
okay.
Or like the dragon, maybe a series of spines of books that is probably also the dragon spine. Is that too on the nose?
Nope.
So because of the fact that she's been so like hypnotized to start and is probably a little off kilter and like off her game, my thought would be that she's kind of got the jump on like shooting it with her hand crossbow, but then at some point it just kind of knocks her off her feet and probably like smacks her in the head doing so.
So yeah, kind of bruises you. Maybe it actually knocks
Yep.
you back and you like hit your head on that driftwood or something that
Yeah, I
was
mean,
nearby.
I was
Yeah.
thinking maybe like my ruin going up would be me getting like temporarily knocked unconscious.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I haven't been always remembering. So still conditions here, but just to kind of keep track, I think that should be a condition just to add to your character. Sort of dazed, I think, once you come to, because you've been sort of hypnotized and then knocked over the head by this thing. It doesn't mean much except kind of role playing stuff. And then what's Obeha doing in the middle of this?
Obeha is like, what? Because he has nothing. But then, seeing Jean-Jacques get attacked by the things and coming to his senses finally, he would like to use his... Well, we defeat the monster, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So I stood there doing nothing, essentially.
No, you can, I think, narratively describe kind of
Oh.
how you helped. That's fine. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, after Jean-Jacques got all cut up and Rose got hit in the head, I jumped on top of the monster. Ah! And then I did my drain ritual, which allows me to remove water from a person or animal. So I will try to freeze it in place by getting rid of its ability to move. It's already been mortally wounded, probably, but now I just want to create like a...
Hey, but now you can
like
dry
a
off the pages and read it.
We could read them. I think there's probably eldritch knowledge.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So seeing that the animal has been severely wounded and has already struck my friends, I shall jump atop it in an attempt to appear brave, knowing that the danger is well past, and I will drain it of its liquid. Ha ha! I shall say, take that, beast.
You're reminding me of what's that guy from Harry Potter? The guy who...
Yeah, well, I'm going for the Gallivant thing, but guy, the Kenneth Branagh character, right?
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Lockhart, right?
Lockhart, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Ha ha ha.
Yeah, this will be another chapter in your book of how you defeated the strange...
Yes, the paper.
The bookworm, actually,
Yes,
is
the
what...
book- Verm, the bookworm.
Yes. I think...
That's pretty
So
good.
this will be interesting. I think... So, I mean, you obviously can jump on it because it's been incapacitated, but it's sort of like in its death throes, and like those jaws did have bits of metal in them. And I think because it sounds like you want to preserve parts of it or something.
As best I can.
Yeah.
I want to appear to be... Yes, I do. Yes, of course.
Let's do a risk roll because you're using the ritual, because magic is always a little bit dangerous in this scenario, just to see how well it goes. Either way, like the thing is dead, but we'll kind of see how what gets preserved or if anything happens in the process.
Roll. So sorry, remind me what the risk roll is, please.
So you get to roll, add 1 light dice for any skills that you have,
Right.
which you probably have a few, I think.
I have... Well, do I have a few skills? I'm not sure what would work for this. I have artifacts, myths, and obfuscation. Perhaps myth again is a...
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. And as an expelled apprentice, lore.
Yeah, any of those would work for sure. Yeah.
So it's 2 light die then, or 1 light die?
I've been forgetting because it's trophy gold. Sorry. Equipment also counts if you're using like equipment you have. Sorry.
Oh, I see. Yeah,
It's
I got
broader
no
than that.
equipment.
It's basically like, is there yeah.
Obeha is very unprepared for adventuring. He's prepared to be a jerk.
Yeah.
So
So then the second dice would be for any devil's bargains. I have a weird one, but I want to see what other people might have for things that will happen regardless of the outcome of the roll.
interesting.
Any suggestions? You're muted. Oh, okay.
I don't have anything. Sorry. That was
Yeah. I don't know if I have much either.
I mean, yeah.
So mine is
Devil's
that
bargain. Yeah.
mine is that a piece of this thing will get embedded in you somehow, like whether it's one of those like metal key teeth or somehow some of the book gets imprinted on you. You don't know what that will mean yet.
Oh, I don't know
Cool.
what it will mean. Yeah, I'll take that.
Cool.
Kidding? Great. So
The bookworm lives inside of you, Aki. We knew this all along.
I now serve the bookworm. I don't know what you're talking about. I've never seen a book in my life.
Not one like this.
Yeah, I've never seen a. So
So
one
it's-
light die and one dark die, right?
2 light dice and 1 dark dice because you took the devil's
What?
bargain. Mhm.
Sure, I sure did. 2 light die and 1 dark die. Come on, I just need you to spin. Okay, I'm going to do the reroll selected version. Ooh, the light die are 6 and 4, and the dark die is a 5.
Nice. So you're good. The highest is that 6, so that's a success.
6.
So you just yeah, I'll describe that complication part, and then you describe your success, and then we'll get to the complication. So what does that look like?
Yeah, it's me jumping on the back and being like, "Ugh," and I go, I speak whatever words I may have learned in the Arcanum. My low level spell, but I'm able to drain all this, wrestling it, literally trying to grapple it, and almost seems like I'm squeezing the water from it, but it will slowly become a petrified paper statue of a worm there on the beach, almost like a stone statue.
Yeah, and in the process later on, maybe not right away, but you'll notice that while you were wrestling it, maybe it's in your forearms, there's a couple places where there were imprints from the books that somehow the writing itself is almost kind of tattooed in your skin a little bit.
Yeah. Like half a stick of butter melted.
Yeah. But another strange thing that happens is as you complete the ritual and drains, it's like seawater's coming out of it, and it becomes completely dry and like hard paper mache and mummified, but all the teeth fall out, and they all kind of fall and shift and almost land in this circle on the sand. And there are all these different tarnished keys. Some of them are half keys, like they're broken, like they're completely useless. Some are very small, like might be in a locket, but they all somehow fall and arrange themselves into a circle on the sand, and they have a faint glow to them.
Oh my!
Sitting there.
I think I'm going to I'm covered in all these paper cuts and everything like that, but I just drop my my mallet and I just say, "Oh my goodness, what is this?" And I look, it's made of paper. And then I've got my gauntlets, and I'm like the pages are razor sharp. I'm like, luckily for my gauntlets. And I say, we could probably sell this for a lot of money, huh?
Actually, that reminds me. I have to let you do that. As he's picking through that and you're talking about, let's do the dice too, because that is a thing. So
I'm also still passed out.
Okay. Oh yeah, she'll be fine.
Yeah, you're like gold, and I'm like, books.
I think, Sky, whenever Rose comes to, your companions will be kind of poring over the body of this thing and figuring it out. So it might not be for very long. Whenever you want to jump back in, you have come to. Why don't you, Aki, roll 9 9 gold dice in there. D6s.
Way. 9.
Yeah, we're just looking for 6s that come up.
Rolling 9 dice.
Yep, and just any 6s that come up is basically a part that's valuable that you could sell somewhere.
Looks like I did green because I mistook green for gold. 4 6s.
Nice.
Woo.
Cool.
I think somehow intact in some of the spines, like was mentioned, are the literal spines of books, and there's still an intact preserved book in the middle of there. So I'm gonna say there's 2 books of lore that are maybe not the most interesting or useful to you, but are definitely useful to some other antiquarians. Just valuable old books. And then I think the eyes themselves are another thing that would be, so each of these is worth a gold. There'll be 2 books, each worth a gold. And then the eyes are like some kind of crystal marbles. And then the teeth, some of the loose teeth you could also sell. Be worth another gold. So you can divide that up however you want to. It's a one shot. It's not like whatever.
We have 4 gold. Sounds good.
We have 4 gold. Yes. Yes, exactly.
Parts of a bookworm.
Parts of a bookworm.
I just kind of turn back over to Rose and I just say, nice of you to join the party. Wait a second. Are those keys glowing over there?
Yes, I was just noticing that. It would appear that the teeth of this, let's call it a paper dragon, have all fallen out into this bizarre magic circle here and are glowing.
As you're looking at that, actually, and I'm sort of fast forwarding the story a little bit because I think we are going till 5, right?
We are going until like a couple minutes before 5.
Right, exactly.
Before 5. Cool. Obeha, somehow in your studies, you've heard, whether you've told your companions or not, you've heard about the Azure Archives, which is this fabled mythic library that maybe doesn't exist, maybe portals to it open in different places, but somehow you see these keys linking together, almost like completing a sigil or a magic circle. And somehow, because they've been dislodged from this living creature, they've reconnected again. And in that circle in the sand, it starts to expand a little bit, and the sand just kind of falls away from it and forms a tunnel, the inside of which is all just formed out of other densely packed layers of paper and old books. And you can see it goes deep into the ground.
My friends, our plans may have just changed ever so slightly.
Is it spinning for anyone else right now?
Oh, Rose, here. Well, you drank a lot and then got hit about the head. I'm not sure what we can do for you.
Yeah, this sounds like the recipe for the worst hangover ever. Did that beast was felled by us, however, yes?
Yes. All 3 of us contributed to its demise. Equally, I would say.
I'm sure you were as great and strong in this fight as you've told me about being all of your other fights.
Right. I'm sorry that you were asleep for it, but it was really something. Jean-Jacques and I just tore it apart.
He leapt on top of the beast, but I don't remember anything. I just hit it with the hammer.
Yes, Jean-Jacques waded in like you would into water, essentially.
Rose walks up to whatever's left of it.
It's a big statue.
Rose walks up to whatever's left of it, the statue, and pulls the like crossbow bolt out of like its neck or something, and I'm like, and I mean, I guess I hit it a little bit as well.
We're 3 amigos who took care of this beast together.
Definitely equals
in
killing.
Now, I know what you may be thinking. What about this glowing hole over here?
No, that's what I was thinking. You were totally right.
Yes,
I
had a feeling you were thinking that, and so I thought Rose, you've just woken up, but there's a glowing hole just beside the monster here.
Oh, a glowing hole. Well, usually when there's a glowing hole, it's something that either you should avoid or travel down.
Yes. Well, I think this may be, and now I don't know if you know this, but I was valedictorian at the Stormseekers Arcanum, and so I'm very familiar with myths and artifacts and various things. This paper dragon appears to have had the keys to the fabled Azure Archives, which was a place I was planning to go because there are some very important books there that I should like to borrow for my writings.
Check out.
I would like to check them out of the library, of course, the archive. And I think we may have found an entrance to said archive. The archive is like part. I'm looking at Gabriel now. The archive is part of the. I realize when I look, it doesn't matter. It means nothing to you.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah. Is in this town, right? That was like my place that I wanted to go, and
yep. just kind of found a shortcut.
I think-
us.
Yeah, the Azure Archive has found us, and I think it might be. Well, listen, we could see if the hole is there in the morning, but something tells me this is a sort of a nighttime style trip.
Something tells me if I wait till morning, I will need to vomit, so I will continue.
Rose, do you feel up to jumping down a glowing hole?
Of course, they probably know you here. I mean, you're so well known.
Oh, yes. Well, I don't know if word has arrived. I certainly hope it hasn't. I should like to surprise them somewhat. But perhaps we shall wrap up our tent. And, I will remove one of the glass marbles from my pack and drop it into the hole and see what happens.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Yeah, I think makes a fairly muffled, muted sound because it's all just like densely packed. But you see it drop down and kind of roll its way down. It's almost like steps as it goes in.
I just shrug my shoulders. Man, I've always wanted to try a glowy hole, and I walk downstairs.
I don't think that is what you think it is, my friend, but I will follow you.
Rose, is there anything? Have you heard anything of these archives? Did you like have access to any of that stuff? No.
No, this isn't my area of expertise.
You will notice. So maybe your companions don't know this, but the ship that you're hoping to get to is kind of just off the coast here, further along the cliffs, kind of out of sight. But you do see that this tunnel is going down and going that direction.
Oh, beautiful. Well,
Conveniently.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm for it.
Yeah, let's get horse. Let's just take it.
Yeah.
Let's jump on it.
Yeah, come on.
Ride into the
Come on.
sunset.
Nice. As you all start to make your way down through this tunnel, it's weird. It's almost like a creature made a vast nest, but out of endless books, or like the paper and the layers of it grew like the layers of a tree. It's kind of hard to tell which. It's like the thing, or that. So this would tie into the rumors of the archive for Beha. You've heard some out there theories that it's just a magical library, or it's a magical library that's so old that the sort of books started to talk to each other, and the powers in them started to try to like form new worlds out of the materials that they had. So it almost looks like this structure is grown out of books. But it's more or less just a long, dry tunnel that you're able to walk through quietly.
No, that is exactly what I expected a glowy hole to be. Sorry, no, I'm done. I'm sorry. So as we walk down and I see this, like, this is not organized like any library I've ever seen.
Yes, this is a very different sort of library. Step gently, my friends. The books here do not merely contain knowledge. They possess knowledge of what they contain, if that makes any sense.
Wait, are you telling me these papers are alive like that creature?
Well, they are enlivened somehow. I don't know quite how it works, but I mean to find out.
So do we believe the creature may have been of this place?
I don't know. I think it might have been a guardian of some sort, or perhaps a sentinel. Maybe we somehow stumbled upon, maybe the creature was headed back, and we vanquished it and have been gained entry that way. I'm not sure.
Perhaps it was the Glowhole's guard dog.
Glowhole's guard dog. Yes.
Yes, that great album by Three Dog Night.
I think I do know that. That's a lovely yarn. That epic poem, the Glowhole's guard dog. Yes.
Yeah. Could you refresh my memory just a few lines?
I don't remember it quite, but I know for several people, yada tada yada da, you'll be walking on your feet, though it never escape the Glowhole's guard dog. Yada 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 yada. I haven't heard it since I was a child.
Oh yes,
Sounds
my
like
milkmaid used to sing that to me when I was but a little youth.
It's a very popular song with the milkmaids, as I've learned in my studies.
Nice.
I think.
I have never heard it before, and it sounds ridiculous to me.
Well, you just killed a Glowhill's guard dog, Jean-Jacques, so...
Maybe they should make a song about me then.
So the out of character goal of this place, and we'll probably have 30 minutes or so, is to basically, so you all may have different things that are valuable to you that you might be interested in finding here, but the goal is to pass unnoticed, basically to make it out of the library relatively intact and safe.
And right now we just have the one direction to go. There's no...
Yeah, and before long, it does actually open up into, maybe you get the sense it's going towards those cliffs, and it opens up into a bigger cavern. So far, you've noticed that all the it's almost like layers of paper again. There's no single intact book, but it opens up, and then you see what must be the archive, and it's dusty, dry, crumbling papers underfoot, and just shelves upon shelves, kind of stretching up. It's hard to tell again, like some of them, if it sort of like the paper and the wood grew in the shape of bookshelves, or if it's just a bunch of books that were actually there. And shuffling in the distance, you see a little like kind of creaky shape. You can't tell. It looks like it's not quite human, but it's like lifting books and stacking them, and then dusting stuff off, and then stooping and shuffling off, and then rearranging books.
Oh.
I sort of gestured towards Abeja, like, go ahead.
All right. I will foolishly call out to that construct. Hello there.
The figure the legs don't move, but the top just kind of like swivels all the way back to face you. And you'll see that this figure seems to be made out of like bits of antique furniture. It's a sort of mannequin-like thing. Its chest itself is like a smaller bookshelf on which there are smaller books that are stacked in scrolls. And sometimes it's taking one out of there and swapping it. But it turns, it appears to have like a little, just like lantern casting light forward. No clear eyes or features.
Yeah, I was going to ask,
but
does it have a
turns towards you.
face?
Yeah.
It has like a very simply carved face. Let's say it's two lanterns. That's less weird. There's two little lanterns for eyes. Yeah.
So it lanterns for eyes, and then it has a face carved in what, wood?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Not creepy,
Creepy as hell.
Are you, hello. Are you the librarian?
And it puts the things back and then kind of starts to like shuffle towards you all and carries these things. And it doesn't speak. It just kind of seems to tilt its head and look at you, and then looks down and takes a pamphlet out of it opens a drawer on its side and takes out a pamphlet. Looks like there's several, and it hands it to you, and it's this visitor's pamphlet for the archives, and it has this very, very fine print as you open it, and just the list of sort of rules about the archive go on, and they're very particular about
enter. Do not kill our guard dog. Do not. Yeah.
Yeah. No guarantees against loss of
life.
Yeah, life of personality, of brain, dismemberment. Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's like way too many warnings, and it's like for a library. But then it holds out another pad and a quill, like one of its fingers comes off, and it's a quill, and it passes that to you, and it's sort of like a request form, like you may request what you're looking for, and just kind of. Sorry, I can't gesture this thing. It just kind of hovers there, like holding these things in front of you, and just kind of waits, unmoving.
Well, does anyone want to check out a book?
Absolutely, because I can read books. There is a certain book that I wanted to know about. many artworks, and one has lots of pictures in it.
Okay.
And it has pictures of pretty women in it. Is that one that you are aware of? One of the magical books of...
I will ask this librarian construct if it has any smut for
Yes,
Jean-Jacques.
it is the word that I was looking for.
Yes,
I mean,
I'm familiar with
I
that.
had very specific ideas when I walked in the glory hole.
Mhm.
I'm sorry.
It's getting
I'm
better.
so- I'm
It's
done. I'm done.
getting, no,
I'm very done.
it's better than bear jokes, I suppose. Oh, and there's a crossover. Rose, anything?
Oh, since I'm of, repressed blood, I'm sure I'm looking for some sort of a harlequin romance novel, but none of these dirty pictures.
Okay, a bit of pulp fiction. Yes, a book of smut, a book of pulp fiction, and then just to round out the list, if you should happen to find it, I'd like the original Storm Scrolls of the Overlord. So, just those three. If we can
Standard
find
list.
those, that would
Just
be
a
great.
standard list, yes.
Yeah, and we'll wait.
So it actually,
Hello to Micah, who is watching.
oh yeah, and Tiffany at one point. Yeah. Hey everybody. All 5 people watching right now. That's awesome. It takes the scroll. It abruptly takes out a heavier quill and just completely scratches out your last thing, and then it flips over the pamphlet and passes it back to you. And the last sheet has one single rule, and it just says, "Absolutely no entrance to the upper floors. Forbidden archives." And you see behind you, there's clearly a winding metal staircase that goes up there. But it crosses that out.
Was that an answer for one of the requests specifically?
Just mine. It was crossed out.
Just the nonchalant one, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why they just the original.
Then the other
Storm Scrolls
ones, it summons, it makes a taps on the bookshelf, and far off another end of the bookshelf rattles, and there's a couple more of these little mannequin figures that come up, and one of them, it's the bottom is just a pair of wheels, so it's just kind of rolling along, pulling another cart of books, kind of ready to guide you to those other sections. You'd notice that this one doesn't have eyes either; it just has a lantern, but one of the lanterns is not working. They don't seem the most, I guess, observant. They don't have your full human senses about them.
How far up is the upper floor? How many stairs?
I would say it's like 2 stories. It's a kind of winding, spirally staircase that goes up, kind of in the middle of this big cavern.
Does it look like it's locked, or behind a cage, or fence, or wall, or?
It's the staircase winds up, and then the second level, it has this whole round balcony around the top, lined with all these bookshelves and maybe other entrances past there. Yeah.
Okay. Great.
So I kind of pull you guys aside and say, "Oh, okay, I'm very embarrassed. I just was trying to look like one of the group, but I cannot actually read books."
Well, the book that I requested for you requires very little actual reading.
I know it may seem it was a ruse.
Yes.
I was trying to.
I wasn't sure about you, Jean-Jacques.
Yes.
But, yes.
But anyways, I say this now because it does not seem like they want us to go to the place that you want, and I believe that this scroll that you are looking for would be quite lucrative for all of us to obtain, and perhaps may make our journey worthwhile. Now, I wonder. You mentioned something about these books and papers having knowledge themselves of memories.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if using our own handwriting and writing, perhaps we could impart our will upon the pages.
Yes. Also, I do happen to have a signet ring and some wax with me, so we could, if we wanted to, with a combination of the ink, the invisible ink, plus a signet ring and wax, we could sort of forge some sort of a false document saying that we do have the right to access. I don't know. Just a
I
thought.
like the way your head works. Both of your heads work great.
So I don't know whether it applies, but if we're able to forge some sort of document or whatnot, one of my beast bitten skill is transformation, and I wonder whether that somehow might apply to taking this lifeless sheet of paper with knowledge on it and kind of melding it in or forming it into whatever this construct is and making it a part of it. Oh, you're muted.
Thanks. Yeah, that sounds interesting. I like. So that's a skill. Do you have rituals? I'm trying to remember.
Yes, I do. Although none of them are applicable.
Yeah, I think if I mean, you can try whatever, and we can roll the dice to see how it goes. I think if there's anything else to kind of just describe what you're trying to do, then we'll kind of go with that. So maybe, Rose, are you forging a document?
Yeah, I can forge a document. I can also do my hospitality ritual, which I wasn't able to do earlier around the fire because instead we just sang a song. So be happy to hospital among these shelves.
If you could find it in your heart to sweet talk these book golems, that would be great for me. I really need this first scroll of the Overlord, and I think if I find it, well, suffice it to say, our little trio would be unstoppable.
My
I think
thought
out
is,
of character, I think the forging one will probably work. They don't seem to be like emotional creatures. You know what I mean? But
Sweet.
if they're handing you rules and written words and stuff, that would.
Then let us forge on.
Oh no. Excellent. I will go up to the big construct again and distract it with a long list of like really ridiculous, diverse material. Unless Rose has an idea. Point of order.
I just have one more thing. I would like to give Jean-Jacques my whistle, so that if we're all three doing different things and Jean-Jacques has a whistle, then at some point he could blow the whistle and he could be our whistleblower, and that could create another distraction while we are figuring stuff out.
Excellent.
Sure.
Oh, wait, no. I will distract it with questions and lead it away from Rose while she creates this forgery.
And while she's doing that, John, I think you each get to try these different things. John, you're trying to impart. Basically, sounds like trying to alter one of these things.
I want to incorporate the forgery physically into the metaphysical being of this library's consciousness.
Cool, I like it. So I think so. The forgery part, I think the distraction, the forgery, you just kind of narrate that, and then once we get to doing the thing, we'll describe. Actually, let's have you each describe what those things look like in a little more detail. Do like a scene, and then when it comes to like the consequences, we'll play it out. So like, Obeah, what are you telling this thing about to distract it?
I'm saying, okay, well, do you have any books on let's see, the various uses of glass marbles in the northern wastes? I'm looking for a book on the Stormseeker's Arcanum.
It holds up that part that it's crossed out.
Oh. Yeah. Okay, then I'll take famous beaches of Japan and their fauna. I'd like a book on shipbuilding. I'd like
Oh,
to
you said
find-
Japan because that's where I went. You were paying attention earlier.
I just
That's
thought
so
maybe I'd
nice.
check it out, see what
Oh.
that's what all the hubbub's about. I'd like as many scrolls as you have on mask making, and so it's just rattling off these ridiculous things, and I'm walking around with it as just to distract it from whatever enterprise Rose is doing.
And it keeps like changing direction. It's almost like it's trying to calculate like which one to show you first, and it keeps getting confused, and it's definitely keeping it occupied. And Rose, what's the document?
Hold on.
What's going on there?
You're saying that Aki is keeping it occupied?
Yep,
That's right.
there we go.
Gotta throw out the puns while you can. Gather your puns while you may.
We have a real life librarian watching who's I didn't even think about that. Nice.
Oh, she's thrilled.
Yes, of course.
I am. Yeah. Did you give me your invisible ink, Jean-Jacques? Or wait,
I certainly
Obeha
did.
had the invisible ink.
Yes, I bought it for 30 copper, and I certainly handed it off to you. Yes.
Okay. I guess it doesn't really matter to use invisible ink because we do want this thing to actually be read. But let's say that I do some sort of very interesting illusory script on the front that is in invisible ink, so that if for some reason one of these lamp library golems has the ability to read it, they shall see some sort of beautiful thing. On the inside, I write some sort of letter to whom it may concern. Obeha, what was your middle storm?
The Stormless.
Obeha the Stormless, wonderful counselor, almighty, wise scribe and thing knower. Shall
Titles,
be given
titles, and so forth.
titles,
Etc., etc.
shall be granted all access pass to the Azure Archives. This expires, and I shall write the date after today, just to sort of make it seem like it's it's like he's coming in the day before it expires. That's how we do. And he shall be granted a +2 for 2 companions for use of this all access pass. Signed, the Almighty.
Titles, and so forth, and scion of the Emerald Archive, and
Yes, yes. The Ruby Archive head archivist
Nice.
Tylash.
Tylash. Yes, Tylash, the one and only.
so it looks without trying to do too many dice rolls yet, I think it definitely drops a lot of names, seems very official and lengthy, especially with that fine ink that may or may not have magical qualities to it, might help it along. But you're putting that together. Jean-Jacques, what are you doing while your companions are doing that?
But like the initial idea that I had was kind of like, just a random thought. It was like, oh yeah, well, if the papers have knowledge, matter if you just put the knowledge in the walls, huh? And then like I sit down and they actually kind of took that seriously, and I kind of start thinking about it, and I look around, and you mentioned that that this place is almost tree-like in the way that it's kind of doing all this, and I'm like, wait, I'm a farmer, and I'm like, this makes a lot of sense. In my other skills, I've got pests, plants, and transformation, and I was like, wait a second. And then I like conjure up this thought about this burrowing aphid that always destroys my beets, and how it does what it does. And it ends up kind of repurposing the beet for its own house and doing everything like that. And I'm like, wait, so if this is the like this part of the plant, the access for the aphids must be down at the roots. And so I'm kind of like looking down and seeing that there are kind of these other tunnels that lead downwards, and basically just using my knowledge to be like, wait a second. So once we do this, we have to insert our knowledge at the base so it can be disseminated throughout the entire thing like a parasite.
It's funny. I have other things I've written for this that are like pretty much what you were saying. It's pretty cool. Mind melding. I think let's do a hunt roll. We haven't done that for a minute because you're kind of like maybe investigating, searching around, and then we'll kind of have you be able to catch up to your companions while they're doing that thing. So you already mentioned your farmer skills and stuff, a few skills. So just roll 2 light-sided dice to see what happens.
Oh no, the top one is a 2.
Ooh, yeah, yep. So I mean, in this game, pretty much no matter what, you do encounter terrible things unless it's a perfect success. The weird thing is, as you're starting to kind of look around at the floor and kind of just take in this structure, it definitely does look like it's been grown out of the books. Like the magic books have like multiplied and reshaped themselves as they've sat here for years and years. And you do see like tunnels, as you start to push away these like dried, like crumbling parchment and things like that. But it's almost like you get this weird thought enters your head, like as you're thinking about these insects, and then like, wait, what if this place just absorbs those things? And as you were thinking about the insects and like that have plagued your crops, you hear like a fluttering, and you kind of look over, and there's like a series of moths, and their wings almost look like there's like inscriptions on them in ink, and they kind of flutter. And then you see on this other shelf on the other side, there's a massive open book that's mostly crumbling, but then you see something like shifting and moving, and you realize there are these weird little beetles, also appear to be made out of parts of books that are crawling over it, and it's almost like those dung beetles that are rolling like balled up paper, and they're like repairing it. And there's almost, the more you look, the more you see this weird ecology of this place that's kind of maintaining and reshaping itself.
Do these things seem malign, or
it almost, it feels like there's so much magic that's been stored here somehow over time that it's like just kind of like in the air, and it's quick to like pick up on your sort of thoughts and kind of start to shape them a little bit. So like there's another corner where it looks like the loose dried parchment almost starts to like become little like leaves and reform. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna quickly like run back to my my friends and well, at least I was right. Finish those documents.
Just out of character real quick too. I mean, so Obeha's character clearly, I mean, we know what you're after. You mentioned that. Jean-Jacques kind of along for the ride with them. What do you think, Rose, while you're like making this document, what do you hope to find here, or to what outcome? In 20 minutes.
I guess I want to find the like any sort of guide to navigation on a ship and that kind of thing, because that's my next plan. Getting on that ship.
Or maybe secret maps to a secret treasure.
Yeah, sure. Yep.
Cool. Yeah. Mini short session. So we'll jump to the next. Seems you put your stuff together that you've kind of worked on, and then kind of tell me where you want to go from there too.
Also, the live comments just have been going really strong, and I just want to give a shout out to my mom, who's been holding it down with a lot of really great things. So thank you to all of you who are commenting and continuing to watch this. I really appreciate it.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Despite my disgusting puns.
No, the puns are getting a lot of love out here.
It's
Pun your love.
customary. It's
Yeah.
how every game goes. Yeah.
It's punny how that works out.
Yeah. We'll frame forward for a second to you presenting this document. You kind of hand it off to Abeja while he's rattling off more obscure.
Oh, yes. Did I forget? Yes, this I have this pass specifically for the upper layers from the ruby, etc., etc., etc.
And you'll notice that it holds up this scroll, and then it's like it's weird lantern eyes, or kind of because there was some sort of there's an invisible ink in there too, or I forget what you said.
It was Jean-Jacques' creation, but I assume it's like there was some magical thing to it.
I was just throwing cat treats to try to get cats to leave each other alone.
Oh,
Nice.
Yeah, no, my
Keeping the
credit
peace.
just says black/invisible ink.
oh, interesting. Okay.
All right.
Yeah, I think it's almost like holding it up to the light, and it's lantern light. You know, like when you write in lemon juice and hold up a flame or whatever, it makes it show up. It's like kind of puzzled by it, like, and you can't tell if like this thing is just so old that it's starting to malfunction, or if there's some other magic that it's able to see or picking up on through this. And there's a long disconcerting moment as it kind of looks at it and looks at each of you again without a real face, just kind of turns towards each of you and back and forth, and then ultimately seems like it's not immediately like alarmed by this, and starts to shamble over towards where that gate, little like metal gate in front of the metal staircase, and like starts to take out keys. It opens another drawer, and now it's like looking for a key and then putting that one back, and it's like very, very slow, laboriously, like trying to find the right key.
Cool, be cool.
Our key is right here.
Yeah,
There we go.
that's a triple entendre. Nicely done.
Eventually does find the right one and unlocks, creaks open the metal, metal gate in front of the staircase and lets you all pass.
I coolly and discreetly fist bump my friends.
And then we go up to the. And are there any guardians on the upper floor? Or is it all quiet and dusty and empty, and silent?
It's almost all those things. There's no immediate guardians, but there's almost the occasional like rustling of books that kind of are shifting on the shelves, like they're sleeping but kind of wake up a little bit. And there's this occasional crackle of energy from some of these other tomes that seem to be chained down to these pedestals that they're on.
Well, I hope that getting in here is worth it, because I fear that our illusion will probably not last for too long.
Yes, we must be about our business quickly. So
we are looking for a storm life paper scroll.
I will try to find the original storm scrolls of the Overlord, and you and Rose perhaps try to find the treasure maps or something that can be useful once we get on board.
Perhaps there are forbidden picture books for me to find.
And we can anything with pictures. Yes, we'll just shove that in our bags as well.
Much obliged. I appreciate it.
One thing about the forged document, now that you realize that it was looking at, and now that you're holding it, something about the ink has almost like attuned to the things you were looking for. Now that you're on this other archive, and it's almost like it. Whichever way you point it, it kind of glows a little more, like it becomes its own treasure map for you that will guide you to where you're trying to go.
Actually, there is one other book that I perhaps I couldn't imagine, but this is as mythical and serious of a place as I might imagine. Perhaps there is a creature or man that we could find documentation of. In the werebear circles, there is the tale of one werebear that existed. He was a count. His name was Winnie of the County Pooh, and they called him the Honey Baron because he He was obsessed with this stuff for some reason, but he wreaked havoc upon all nations, but then was lost to the sands of time. Perhaps there is some documentation of this.
Winnie the Werebear, the Pooh, the Honey Baron.
Yes.
Of the
Yeah.
county poo.
Of the county poo.
Of the county poo.
Mm-hmm.
Winnie of the county poo.
Hmm.
Well, let's look for that too. Well, I don't know if we wrote that. If we'd known that, we would have written it on the paper as well, I guess.
I feel like we can add to the paper now that we have granted our all access pass. And I would also like to scribble down a book on how to read, so that we may have a final montage of us on the seas, wherein we are teaching Jean-Jacques how to read. What sound does C make?
Yes. No, that is this. Yes. Okay. So I guess Rose is holding the map. Do you have the letter that was given back to you? So you've got the glowing words that could take us around to the various books, and we can retrieve them from the shelves, but they will allow themselves to be taken.
Some of them almost demand that you read them, and it's almost like, again, because of short time, we're not going to do a bunch of rolls, but at different points you almost have to resist the compulsion to just pick up a certain book and keep reading until you finish. They're like,
That's great.
Thick dictionary sized tomes. Some of them rattle in their chains literally, and you wonder why they could be that dangerous that they're chained down. But yeah, is there any other, again, because of time, scenes that you all want to, like epilogue scenes you want to do, describing what you hear, and then we'll kind of finish, I think, at the boat for fun.
I feel like
Perhaps we could each lead a small montage and just pass it around 3 quick turns through a series of montages. You can interject wherever you want.
Sounds good.
The
I
last word,
will.
spit it out.
Oh, I'll defer to you guys first because I don't have as much to gain from the library, so I'll let you guys go first.
I will begin with a montage of us in a section of maps, and me beckoning Jean-Jacques for his help in looking at the pictures of places, and us opening up different maps that fold out this way, and us sort of finding a good looking treasure map.
Great. Then I shall go to the Stormlord area, and I'll find the Stormlord's, the first Storm Scroll of the Overlord, and then there's also a book that's the Overlord's companion book, and then there is a book of and so I'm putting one, and then I just look at the shelf, and I dump everything else out of my backpack, and I just shove a full shelf of books and scrolls into my bag and put all my other garbage up there, including a thing of marbles.
And then I think while I'm kind of walking along, I'm looking at all these books, and some of them they're really, really gorgeous. I can't read or do anything like that, but like you said, some of them are like just almost forcing you to read them. And then finally, like I'm overtaken, and I pick one up, and I open it, and I look at it, and I'm like turning the pages, and then like the book is like kind of like almost shaking with frustration and rage because I can't read it. And so like it just like claps me on the face and then like flies back to the shelf. I'm just going, what? And I'm gonna look at the treasure map.
That's awesome. I think Jean and Rose, at some point while you're going over those things, you start to hear at some point a really a big racket, as like almost like a whole bunch of books just like take flight off of their shelves, and you hear like the crash is like several bookcases seem to shift and move, because Obeha taking that whole shelf of books seems to have alerted some other guardians of the archive, and so
What?
the final scene of the archives is, we see all of these adventurers just fleeing. You're carrying your bag of books or whatever it is, like papers flying behind you. And you're on this top of this second floor of the balcony, which keeps going round and round, and you notice different alcoves and different doors. Some of them have windows with different like glass windows looking out on different scenes, which, when you think about it later on, strikes you as particularly strange, because one of them is looking like into a desert. One is looking onto a snowy mountaintop. Another one is looking onto the deck of a ship, and I think that's where you all just run through.
I'm getting the Benny Hill music again for this. Like we run in, and then a librarian comes in, and then we come out, and then we go back in, and the librarian comes out, and then goes back in, and then we like run past, and we see the window with the ship, and we run past it, and then we like maybe Rose runs back and goes like, "Come on!" Yeah.
And like as all the paper all the paper guardians or whatnot are coming, like I'm terrified of getting more paper cuts, and so my last piece of equipment that I have is a jar of grease, and so I just take it and I and I like rub it all over my legs and arms, and I'm just like, ooh.
Slide your way onto the ship. Yeah.
That's right.
And that treasure map is kind of tugging you towards that portal, somehow connected to it. And maybe that's a story for a future adventure, but you all find yourselves abruptly falling in a pile of stolen artifacts and papers and grease and paper cuts, and a bunch of loose antique keys on the deck of a ship.
Oh, we still have the keys. We can go back anytime.
Did we find ourselves on the ship?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Somehow miraculously. Yeah.
Oh,
so
something.
Easy.
I guess we didn't know anything about it. Means something's weird about your dad's ship, though. If it's connected to the Azure Archive through Portal, right?
Could be.
In fact, in scroll work around the mast, there's a similar Azure ink, actually, and you realize that you hadn't noticed this before, or maybe it's been many years, but there's very elaborate inscriptions, almost like sigils and blessings carved into the wood of this ship. And parts of the boards kind of are a little misshapen, and one of the crew goes and hammers this board down. And for a second, you see it looks like that wood was almost made out of layers of paper, magical.
Ooh,
similar to that yeast. Yep. Hammers it down and says, "Nothing amiss here." And are you travelers ready to go? And they look to you, Rose. And the story continues another time.
Do I get to put a captain's hat on?
Sure.
It's made out of folded paper. We origami one of these
paper. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Origami.
Yeah.
Origami.
I use my transformation skill to origami a paper hat.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I will for the last little montage, I will use my messenger ritual, and as a little bluebird flies down and lands on my shoulder, I will whisper something in its ear, and it will fly away. And you'll just have to tune in next time to find out what it was.
And I just go on the aft end of the ship and wave to the shore, and I'm just gonna just say F you to the guardsmen who are trying to hang me. I was supposed to pay off. I'm off of this rock.
Nice. Let's do a quick stars and wishes thing at the end. So this is often. Yep.
Yeah. Could we cue who's up next before we do stars and wishes? Just because of time.
So coming up next on Instagram, if I've got it right, let me pull it up. Right, it's Kate Baldwin and Terry O'Quinn who are coming up on Instagram at 5. So you just got a few minutes to hop over there. So it's at K Baldwin 78 or at T-Bone O'Quinn.
Yep, and they're raising money for the Virginia Beach SPCA during their live stream. So you can
a joint stream thing. That's cool.
Yeah, well, they're partners, and so I think they're just streaming from both of their accounts.
Ooh, nice. Flute. Man, I wish I had something important to say over this, but
Our sea shanty.
Yeah.
yeah, more songs next time. Just really quick, stars. It was really always a pleasure to play with you all and your characters and voices, and running with and injecting the story into big open space that we didn't know what we were going to do in 2 hours. So it was really fun. I would have liked to have more songs and music, but you can't force it. But I just look forward to next time we play and making up some of that. But always love your characters. Do you guys just want to go around really quick, say any like stars, shout outs, things you enjoyed, and then, things maybe for a next game that you might want to see?
Oh, I'll start.
Yeah, go for it.
I think it was really awesome. I liked all the interplay between the three of us. I feel like, well, I guess we kind of got there. I was glad we got to some Rose stuff, but I feel like I really wanted to. I'm interested in like what Rose's real deal is. She seems very, and now her dad's ship is. I think there's a lot of mystery there. Anyway, I enjoyed how our stories blended. There could be more blending.
Yeah, I liked how I liked the Gilderoy Lockhart and the amount of fun that you had with that and everything like that. That was a lot of fun. And, oh my goodness! Hi there. No, okay. And I do wish, just like you said, that we could have some more of the Rose stuff that's going on, and I guess figuring out see what happens if I end up accidentally reverting to a bear form. That'll be fun sometime.
A sea bear, is that a thing?
A sea bear? There you go.
Oh yeah. I liked all of it. I like that. I know this is about the writer, but I like that Gabriel always has to have something that is also the form of a tree in anything that he yeah, but no, I love
holes and trees.
I love all of our ways of kind of finding like inventive ways to use. I mean, you all watching might not have known we all kind of rolled for random items that we had, and we all found really interesting ways to use them. So I always really like that sort of like improv justification of, why you might have this thing, whether that's, dropping a marble down a hole to see what happens, or or rubbing grease all over yourself to avoid paper cuts. But yeah, I look forward to finding out more about the beast bitten thing, and I mean, I do hope that this is a session that we can like continue playing.
For sure.
And if you all who are watching are intrigued by it, maybe you can talk us into the idea of having more of it be something that you can watch. So we'll see about that. But
yeah,
this is
that'd be
really
awesome.
fun, as always.
And thanks to Sky for creating Friend Jam 2.0 that you're watching. So amazing thing for these times, for people to get to just like have an online festival all day, and amazing performers as a part of it. There's still, how long does it go? 11:30?
I play at 11:30, husband. Come on.
So many things I can't even keep track of.
Yes.
Yeah, it goes until 12 or sometime after that. But make sure that you all head over on Instagram right now to check out K Baldwin 78 or T-Bone O'Quinn. They will both be streaming from their respective streams, and that should be fun. Hopefully we won't all get lost with Terry O'Quinn.
Oh.
Good. All right.
All right,
Okay.
till next time. End the broadcast.
Great work,
Thanks so
everybody.
much.